Okay, if I'm doing something right, this should be episode 8 of the series. And I've finally gotten to the point where I've caught up with my videos that I've taken during this whole process. So now I'm up to speed. I'll be able to respond to comments as the episodes go on. They might start to slow down a little bit because I've done the bulk of the stuff here. I've yet to connect any of the signal wires between these two things. So I'm still waiting on one more snake. Actually, didn't buy it yet because I was waiting to get paid. I finally got paid a couple days ago. So right after this video, I'm going to go on eBay and purchase that. But let's go over a couple of new things. First and foremost, you can see I put this rack on wheels, on casters, so that is really awesome. Of course, it's kind of hard to do with one hand, and you can see I kind of have power wires already hooked up and over there. We're going to look at the back of this desk in a second, but let's right now just look at this bad boy. And I'm already loving it, as you know. This is really nice when I'm sitting at my desk. If I need to change any of these switches on this patch bay, I'll be able to do it very easily and then push it back. And right now, I actually only have a plan to connect to the first 8 on this patch bay. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with the rest of these, and I kind of like the idea of leaving these open. So as I start to work with this new setup, I'll probably come up with new ideas and new connections that I want to do. So I'm going to keep most of this empty for now. And I'm sorry, I'm a little stuffy. I got a little bit of a cold. I look ridiculous. I have about a pound of Vaseline on my lips, and I know it makes me look ridiculous, but I'm a little sick, so just fucking deal with it. Now, you've already seen this. I've done a lot of changes to the patch bay here. Nothing worth talking about quite yet. This box is going to be important in a second, but let's move this out here. I'm doing this all live, baby, so give me a second. You can still see that I, once again, have not connected any of the signal wires. And right now, it looks like a mess, I know, but once I get these things routed on the desk, it's going to be amazing. So let me pull this out. Let's see how well I can do this with one hand. This is kind of a test here. Alright. Just dropped something. Hope it wasn't important. Come on, baby. Come on, baby. Come on. Alright, nice and easy. No rush, right? And here we go. You can see I'm kind of shimmying back and forth. I'm hearing noises I don't like. This is probably like the least interesting thing on camera ever. But that's probably enough for now. Let's go back there. So I still could pull it out maybe another foot or so. You can see I still have a pretty good amount of room. More room than I was kind of expecting. Imagine another foot onto here. And this is going to be pretty great. So let me angle this a little bit. Oh, that's why it's so hard to move. I have I have my 80-8 there. That was holding it up, and so was this box. Sorry, this is not a well-planned video. But you can see I start to have my power wires connected to everything and routed. You see I have mounted a power strip here, and that power strip ultimately goes to the voltage regulator down here. It's kind of hard to tell with the lighting, and I'm out of breath. Oh boy. But you see, I have these 4 receptacles filled in already. I have 2 receptacles here. I kind of already made this as neat as possible. I made it so I was able to, wheel this away to a pretty significant amount before these wires get taut. Once again, I know I keep saying, as little stress as possible, the better, while also trying to keep it as neat as possible. You can see I have a really thick wire coming here, routing here, routing here, routing here. And this goes to the power filter that is mounted on the back of this rack that we already talked about in the past. So once I press the power button on that main unit, it'll send power to here, and then this stuff will light up. You can see I already routed the wires going to this shelf, which it's a little messy at the moment. I'm going to clean this up a little bit, just for my own sake. I like to make it look neat and something I'm proud of. But I have everything in this wire loom here. Once again, sorry for the lighting. It's not the best. And this is the only wire loom that is going to this shelf. So this is way, this is tolerable very easily. You can see I still have a bunch of slack in it. I could easily push this desk even more further and have some, slack to spare. But I don't know how easy it is to tell on camera, but this is all relatively neat. It kind of looks like a jumbled mess, but you know, I have a couple clips here and here and here. If I had to take a unit off, you know, all I have to do really is just unclip a couple of the clips here. This one too, unplug it, and it should be relatively easy to take it off. I wanted to keep, you know, this process in two phases. One with the power wires, and then two with the signal wires, because I want to treat them separately. I want to route them in different locations. You see I have this bottom piece here that is, you know, ample real estate for me to screw a bunch of things here, and someone suggested putting this whole thing as Velcro and using Velcro straps for the wire looms. Not quite sure what I'm going to do yet. Right now, I'm going to be honest, these kind of wire looms that I have here that I bought for real cheap, they're kind of doing the job. Obviously, if I have to take out, you know, a loom, I have to undo all of the, you know, loops here. Like I say, I had one here, one here, one here, one here. I had 6 here. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a pain in the ass, but we'll see. But, you know, I'm trying to, you know, find the middle ground between being too organized and too hard to repair this stuff. So, you know, there's a middle ground somewhere. And I think that's kind of it for the back of here. Not really much interesting stuff going on, just besides power wires. Once again, I have yet to do the signal wires. I'm waiting on for one more snake. And I spent about 45 minutes, let me push this baby back a little bit, organizing the rest of my wires. And this box was a complete rat's nest in the room across next to this room, and you know, even just organizing it is a huge help. I just cleaned up this room a couple days ago. It was a gigantic mess. I have this bag here. This whole thing is filled with wires that I've been collecting over the past 7 years or so. You can see this bag here. I don't want to take it out, but I have a bunch of XLR bulk cable that I bought maybe 5 or so years ago off eBay for super cheap because I saw a great deal, and I said, I'm going to need that one day. And I'm probably not going to need much of that wire for anything here. You can see I already in the past made a bunch from that. You see all this green, orange, yellow wire here is all from that bulk XLR cable, and these are all connectors that I made myself. But I don't think I'm going to need to make much. I'm hoping one day when I have an even nicer place to set up my recording studio and I have a proper control room and recording room, I'll be able to route these cables through a wall. And, you know, obviously, when I saw the great deal of hundreds and hundreds of feet of XLR cable, you know, I couldn't put down a deal like that. One day I will make use of these, so right now they're just sitting. But this brings up an interesting point. If you go here, I'm going to show you something. And I just bought this camera a couple days ago, and I am beyond excited. I have been looking for this camera for over a decade, if you would believe it or not. And they're not particularly hard to come by, but when I find them in person, they always have ridiculous prices on them. If you notice, this one says $35, which is more than a reasonable price for a mint condition Spotmatic F. I mean, this is a 6-year-old camera. 6-year-old camera, and it's in mint condition. And anyway, the reason I'm bringing this up, as you can see, I have another one here. I've had this camera for close to 15 years now. I love this thing. I bring it with me everywhere. I always joke how they're going to bury me with my tape machine over there. They're actually going to bury me with this camera. I love this thing so much. It means so much to me. Anyway, the reason I'm bringing this up, I say the word anyway like 10,000 times in these videos. I've been searching for this camera for over a decade because I wanted a backup or a parts camera for this camera. Never expected it to be in mint condition when I finally found one for a reasonable price. But the point is, I've waited more than a decade to find one, and I go to flea markets, garage sales, estate sales, etc. all the time, and I always look for a Spotmatic F rather. And you know, after more than 10 years, I finally found one for an extremely reasonable price, and I bought it. And the reason I'm mentioning this, it just goes back to the whole keeping this budget friendly. And you know, I already have a bunch of videos on, you know, saving money on this stuff and how it doesn't cost nearly as much as you think it's going to cost. And it's just about being patient. Just like the XLR cables that I saw for an insane deal on eBay 5 years ago. I knew I'm going to need this one day. I'm going to need it, and I'm going to invest in the money now while I get a good deal. I also, this weekend, bought this Ludwig stand, which is nothing special, but it is a true, I believe, either 50s or 60s Ludwig stand. The guy wanted $35, and you can see the tag here. I offered $20, and he said no problem. I was probably sitting there for 20 years. And it's in not a good condition at all. But anyway, I just want to show you another good deal that I got. $20 for a rusted Ludwig stand. I'll take that because you want to know why? Right now, I don't have a need for that for my cymbal setup, but who knows where my drumming's going to take me. One day, I might want to put a cymbal stand, or a cymbal rather, right there, which used to be my old setup on my drums. I used to have hi-hat, ride, small crash, bigger crash. And right now, like, I have like a crash ride here. You can see my old ride in the back, my Sabian AAX that I don't really use that much anymore. That's a great stage ride cymbal. But, I love the trashy crash ride that I get from this, cheap 60s Zildjian. It's actually a 70s Zildjian. But anyway, I keep saying the word fucking anyway. One day I might want the cymbal there. Once again, I saw a deal that I couldn't let down, and I took it. And that goes for all this gear. All this gear I waited, most of it, not all, most of it I waited for a time that I just saw a good deal, and I said, okay, let's do it. Let's spend the money and, do it properly. I wanted to talk about one thing, kind of unrelated to the specifics of this setup here, and it's responding to like a broad range of comments that I get. And there's one on the last video I got that's just like, I try not to get aggravated, and truthfully, I could give a shit less what you people on the internet think of me. 99% of the things people say are positive, so like when I get like the 1% comment that's like annoying, truthfully, in real life, I don't care. I think it's mostly funny most of the time, but it does warrant a discussion because I get a few comments basically trashing what I'm doing in this series and the setup I'm doing, and saying, oh, you should have done this, you should have done that, this room's no good to record in because it's this and that. And it's like, oh my god, okay. First of all, the whole point of this series is not how-to necessarily, right? I'm not trying to teach you the proper way to set up a recording studio. I'm just trying to show you how a bedroom recordist or a garage rock recordist can set up a studio in their house with the limitations they have. And it's like in all of my videos, what do I always harp on? Limitations. Now, I usually bring it in a different context, in the context of songwriting and recording for the music itself. But just like that, I have so many limitations for this recording studio that, of course, I would love to have a 30-foot by 30-foot room with 18 feet ceilings and proper control room and, proper acoustical treatment. But this is real fucking life, bro. I don't have the ability to just build a studio from scratch for monetary reasons, for space reasons, for so many reasons. And I used to get annoyed at comments like this, and then I realized, actually like only a couple days ago, that when people make comments like that, one, it's just like kind of a little socially awkward, right? You would never talk like that to someone in person. Like, you'd just be a dickhead, right? If you talked like some people talk in YouTube comment or, online comments. But I realized that it comes down to envy, and not that they're envious of other YouTubers. What I think it is I think they're envious of the attention that other YouTubers get, and they wish that because they're knowledgeable themselves, that other people would be listening to them. They say, oh, why is someone listening to this kid when they should be listening to me? And, that's a natural feeling. Granted, sometimes the way it manifests itself into online comments isn't necessarily the most healthy way of dealing with that emotion. But we're all human. We all, have emotions like that. And, I think it just comes down to someone saying, hey, I know what I'm talking about. Why is no one listening to me? So, I don't take offense to it. It's really just, it is what it is. I don't want it to be a pity party. Last time I did a video like this, everyone was like felt so bad for me, and that's not my intention at all. Like I said, I don't give a fuck what you people think of me. In real life, I care what people think of me, but you people, I don't give a shit. All right, I'm like half joking here. You know, I'm just trying to be funny, but the point is, I have so many limitations, and you know, I've been thinking a lot about just the basic setup in here, and let me try to push this control board back to kind of facilitate this conversation, because the location of this board in this room is a big discussion point, and I already touched upon it in a couple previous episodes. You should see me doing this a little bit by a little bit. You'd be surprised, even with the casters, this board is so heavy, and the rolling friction, oh boy, I'm running over the wire here. The rolling friction just from the weight of this board is incredible. But, all right, there you go. Let me push this rack back. Sorry, I know this is like the worst angle on in the world. Oh boy, I almost just broke something. Oh boy, all right. So, the location of this controller. Let me go back in the corner here. And we're pretty much back where we were. It's still a little messy in here, but whatever. Now, I already told you guys in the previous video how the length from like the side of this tape machine to this rack would not physically fit here. And that's one problem. I also mentioned that I want to be able to get into this crawl space up here, or this attic space up here, easily, and if the board was there, I would not be able to do that. That's also a valid reason. Now, if I had my control room here, this is actually the most ideal position acoustically. And that's because you want your control room to be as symmetrical as possible. So it's kind of hard to show you the design of this room, but it's a rectangular room with a sloped ceiling. And the small side of the ceiling is, my 20 hats just fell, is where my back is, or the back of the camera is. And then the tall side of the ceiling is like this. So it's symmetrical right down the center of the room. And for stereophonic reasons, you always want your monitoring situation to be as completely as symmetrical as possible. So either this wall or the wall to my back would be ideal for this room in specific. Now this side of the wall is not ideal because, in my opinion, that the ceiling is a little shorter. If my monitor speakers are near the corners, that's worse in a tri-corner versus a double corner. If it was on this side, and the monitors were at ear level, yes, they would be near the corners, but they wouldn't be at a tri-corner. I don't know the correct term, but where three surfaces meet at the same point. You know, low-end frequencies are really going to be accentuated in positions like that. So yes, that would be ideal for this room. Unfortunately, for the two reasons I said before, it just didn't make sense. And another thing I want to mention, not necessarily for this board, but just for this layout in general, this window is actually a really important window because in the summer months, I have to put a wall unit, AC unit here, an air conditioning unit rather. It needs to go in this window. Now technically I could have put it in one of these windows, however this is the front of my house here, and just kind of an eyesore having an air conditioner in the front of your house. I try to put all my air conditioners on the side of the house so when you're looking at my house, you know, it looks nice. I want my house to look nice. I like make my house look nice. So anyway, this window intended for an air conditioning unit. So you can see I tried to leave this spot open here. I also didn't want to put too much of sensitive electronics here because, you know, these in-window air conditioning units, sometimes they accumulate water, sometimes if it rains, and it'll actually spray water out. So when that kind comes, I'll probably just put a plastic sheet over this when I'm not using it, just as a precautionary measure. That shouldn't be too big of a concern. You know, as long as I keep a track on the air conditioning unit and make sure it's draining, that shouldn't be an issue. And another thing is, I had comments about this drum set being more centered here, and this window here, like, once again, in an ideal world, I wouldn't care about this window. However, I want to be able to open and close the shades, open and close the windows, look outside, be able to get to the windows in case there's a leak, to clean them, whatever. So I want to be able to get to these windows easily. And if my drum set was there, one, it would kind of be in the way of this stuff, but I wouldn't be able to get to that window. Now, that's the point I'm trying to make here is, I could think of 1,000 things I could be doing better in this room, but I'm prioritizing things that don't have to do with music. Let me get a better lighting shot here. I'm prioritizing things that don't have to do with music. Now, focus a little bit. Why are we so out of focus? Now, that's why I'm not making this series a how-to series. I'm just showing you the limitations I have, the decisions I'm making. I'm trying to show you my thought process, and I view it more as a kind of an entertainment thing rather than an education thing, or, you know, maybe some inspiration for you in your studio, or some motivation rather. And out of all the videos I've done, the positive feedback I have gotten for this series has been immensely positive. You know, people are so happy I'm doing this series, and that's exciting. You know, these types of videos, they're going to get less views than if I do a video on 1960s garage guitar or whatever. But for me, it's way more interesting to have these one-on-one conversations with people and debates and, you know, hearing their experiences than doing a video like that. You know, I don't care about the views, right? It's more about the hobby of it. It's really fun for me. So, you know, I'm glad you guys are liking these videos. Let me think if there's anything. Oh, I want to show you this. I pointed to this box before. Show you what this box is. Let's open it up. You see that's a fan. You might say that's a computer fan. You say, whoa, Mario, whoa. This is an analog studio. What are you doing with a computer fan? Now what this fan is going to be a replacement fan for my Alesis HD24. And these things are known for having really noisy fans. And before, this wasn't an issue because I kind of had this machine tucked away underneath my board. I was in a big open room downstairs. But in here, if I want to record, really it's just going to be a problem with vocals, or if I'm recording something, I don't know, Foley related, or maybe some light percussion. Dude, I'm finally realizing why everyone keeps mentioning these Argentinian pears. I didn't even know what that was. I saw a couple comments, now I'm finally reading it. That's hilarious. Yeah, the pears are good. I don't even know where I got that from. But anyway, that's really funny that I just realized that on camera. What was I showing you? Oh yeah, the fan. Let's look at the fan here. Now this fan right here blows outwards toward the camera. They're known for being really noisy, and I got that replacement so I could swap it out, and it's supposed to be much, much quieter, and if I'm doing vocals in this room, you know, on the Alesis HD24, I won't have to worry about background noise. Now, I'm still going to have to worry about the background noise from my tape machine when I record on my tape machine, but for that, I might go out to the room there. I might be able to mitigate the noise coming from this. Maybe it's not as loud as I remember. Maybe if I'm on this side of the room, it's not a big deal. I don't know yet. Maybe if I put acoustical padding, obviously, there's going to be some things I have to do there. But for the Alesis HD24, I could get a quieter fan, and that's exactly what I did. Now, to do this, it's going to be rather easy. Let me show you the connector here. Modern fans, computer fans, whatever you want to call these type of fans, they come with 3 wires, ground, power, and then I guess control speed. The Alesis HD24 only has 2 wires, so I'm going to have to either cut off this connector and splice the 2 wires onto the correct wires, or I might just stick the wires into the correct holes in this connector here. Let me get a better shot. And I might just solder it in there. I don't know. That might be a terrible idea. It might be a good idea. We'll see. But more importantly, this is going to be the first true test of taking out a piece of equipment on this rack. And, you know, I'm already looking at it. Obviously, you have the 4 screws here that keep that rack in. On the back side, let's take a look. You can see this power wire is already getting pulled. So I've only recently set that up, so I'm still not quite used to how much slack I have. Let me go a little more. Now, I wouldn't normally need this much slack, but for the sake of the camera and lighting purposes, there you go. I mean, look at this. Look how easy it's going to be able to work on this. I'm so excited, man. So, I have 8 input wires. I have 20 output wires. I have the power wire, Ethernet. Well, Ethernet's nothing. This isn't even connected to anything. Let's just take this off for now. I have the remote 1/4 inch connector, and then I have the punch-in 1/4 inch connector right there. So, right now, let's just do a couple of this on camera. Alright, I just took out the remote. I just took out the punch-in. And those wires are just hanging here. They have these clips here. Power, same thing. It is connected to the wall here. I'm just going to unplug it. Now, all I have to do is take out these input and output jacks, which is really easy. I'm not going to do that yet on camera because I realized right before I started videoing that I'm going to label these looms so I know what they are, right? Because obviously there's 1, 2, 3, 4 red jacks going into this machine. So when I take it off and put it back on, I want to be able to know very quickly where I have to put things back before I get confused. So I'm going to do that, you know, off camera. I'm going to put labels on here. Maybe I'll take this thing off on camera just so you can see the process. And it should be really easy. I mean, this is exactly, you know, the proof is in the pudding, right? All this work I've been doing is so I can do stuff like this very easily. So I think that'll be enough. I have a sore throat, so it's kind of hard for me to talk, but you know me, I just can't stop yapping, baby. And that's it. Thank you guys for watching. Like I said, I've been having a lot of fun doing this series with you guys and hearing your guys' opinions. And, you know, if you're mean to me, it's what it is, you know what I mean? All right. I think that's it. I don't know if there's really much else to show. I'm trying to scanning around, and I think that's it. Not much else has changed. I hope you guys are staying warm, because I have been frigid. That's why my goddamn lips are so chapped. Okay, why are we talking about my lips? I don't know. All right. See you later. Okay, so I put the labels on here. Some of them I didn't put the plastic covering on the outside because I'm not sure yet if I'm going to wind up keeping some of these labels or changing things around. But for the important stuff, specifically the Alesis HD24 stuff that I know is not going to be changing, and you know, since I'm taking this unit out right now, you know, did them nice, got the plastic on there. Now these are good to go on this end as well as the tail end of the snakes. And whenever I have these snakes with the color-coded cables here, I always try to keep as consistent as possible sequencing. So on this machine, for example, it's probably going to be hard to see on camera, so I'll read out the numbers. You have 1 is red, orange for 2, yellow for 3, green for 4, blue for 5, black is 6, gray is 7, 8 is white. Now, I wish that they were a little different in the way they did this. I wish after blue there was purple, and then black and white is okay, but obviously you could sometimes it could be white or black depending on how you view, you know, how you personally set up your system. But I don't know. I think they could have did this a little better. That's kind of a side there. You could see someone put. Let's zoom in here. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see it on camera. Actually, yeah, you can kind of see it. There are little printed out labels, you know, looks like, you know, some digital printout machine. And this is kind of what I mean. Like, yeah, sure, with these kind of labels, you can get really intricate. You can see this one says DVD-R out LT, mixer channel 13 in, orange. Like, there's a lot written on this tiny little cable, but that is so hard to read. I mean, you got to get up close and personal just to read that. And if you're in a situation where it's dark or it's cramped, that's just not very useful. Whereas, if you look at these, I mean, can't misread that. HD24, 1 through 8 in. And as I said, I try to keep a consistent sequencing. So, you know, I try to remember that. I always try to do black, gray, then white. I'm probably talking a little too much. Let's just start yanking these things out. And I know from the past that a couple of these cables, I'm going to have to redo the connectors on the end, but we'll deal with that when we get there, once I start troubleshooting. So after I unplug these, I should be able just to unscrew the front and take the whole unit out. So let's do that. Alright, let's do it. And something I forgot to mention before, just talk about limitations. One of the limitations that I forgot to mention, and I've got a couple comments on it, that were great suggestions in that I should be setting either storage or recording spaces up in other rooms, specifically the rooms that are, you know, next door to this room in my house. And in an ideal world, that would be awesome. I agree. You know, having an isolation booth or a room would be very beneficial, especially for live situations where I have a couple of my friends over and We want to record everything isolated. The thing is, one of the limitations is that I kind of want to put everything in this room because, as I mentioned before, my girlfriend's moving in and my house is really not that big, and it's really not fair to whoever's going to live with me to just have my instruments and recording instruments take up the whole house. Obviously, they have just as much rights to my house as I do if they're living in, you know, this residence. So I think that is a common limitation that people are going to have to worry about, especially if you're a young kid watching these videos and looking for ideas. You're probably living in your parents' house and all you have is a bedroom, right? So that's kind of what hopefully I get people kind of feel the same concerns that I feel. Now, all right, now I gotta be careful because let's see how easy this is gonna be to take out. And hopefully I don't drop it on camera like an idiot. I have been known to be an idiot on camera. Now, to be honest, it's a little harder than I thought. This unit's not that heavy, it's just kind of bulky. Now I can't, okay, so that, I feel like it just came out. I can't really see. All right, that one's out, so I got one last screw. Here we go, okay. Okay, all right, here we go. Not bad, not bad. Not bad, all right. All right. Look at that. Let's put this on the side for a second. Look how much sawdust is in there. Look at that, man. This is... Are you guys seeing finally what all this work is for? Look how nice and organized that came out. No issues at all. That's amazing. Now, I'm going to swap out the fan on the Alesis HD24. Alright, so we have the fan here. You can see the black red lead going to it. It's going to a... Let's take it out here. If I could, easily. There you go. Little connector here. Now, the new fan style. This one specifically comes with a 3-pin connector. So obviously, these are not compatible. So what I'm thinking is I'm going to stick this back in here so it's connected to the board. I'm going to snip the wires here, and then for now, just to at least test this thing and to test the direction of everything, make sure everything's going to be set up right, I'm just going to stick those wires straight into this connector, and if it works, I might just solder it in there and we'll go from there. Little snipping away. Now, I'm making an assumption here that if I connect the red on the original wire to the red on the new wire and the black, and you know, you get the idea that everything should run right. So let's just go for it and hope that's what the case is. Alright, so I got the wires and jumpers set up on this breadboard just to test this out to make sure this thing's going to work before I go crazy and start soldering everything. And let's just lay this here to make sure nothing's going to short out. And let's plug this puppy in. Alright, moment of truth. If things start smoking, it's going to be embarrassing. Nothing's happening. Here we go. Well, I think I put this on backwards. The fan is not nearly as strong as the old one. Now, I don't know how crucial that's going to be, but I remember the last fan being a lot stronger. Okay, so I got the old fan, kind of just wires twisted together. Once again, I just want to see how much more airflow this old one would get. There's definitely more airflow. I mean, I hope you could see, or hear rather, that it is definitely louder than the new one, but to be honest, I'm a little disappointed with the rate of airflow. Now, this unit really doesn't get that hot, so I don't know how concerned I should really be. Maybe it's just something I have to keep an eye on, but for now, let's solder in this new fan. Screw the whole connector idea I had. Let's just twist the wires together and solder it and install the new fan and close this baby up. Okay, so splice the wires I got a little shrink tubing on there. Wound up coming out to be a pretty clean job. As you can see, I left the wire as long as possible, just for who knows what the future may bring. Alright, so let's plug this baby in and put the cover on and feel the total airflow once the cover's on and there's some restriction of airflow. Okay, so we have everything back in. It wasn't the easiest thing in the world, but I could have probably done this whole job in about an hour if I wasn't filming this whole thing. So to me, that's totally acceptable. I'm happy. Obviously it's kind of hard to get this machine back in. We got to worry about all these wires, getting it on top and everything. But it was more than doable by myself, and way better than any situation I've been in the past. So right now the machine is on, and you can't even hear this new fan. And I know a lot of people online remove this metal shroud here and put a wire aftermarket one. But I wanted to keep this thing as original as possible, and I wanted to see, how loud it is without cutting this piece out, and you could barely even hear it. I'm going to stop talking for a second. And I took a before shot of the old fan to kind of compare to the sound. This obviously isn't a scientific test, but let's take a listen. I mean, that's got to be at least a fourth of the volume of the old fan. And once this thing gets put against the wall and I'm recording somewhere else in the room, you're not going to hear this thing at all. That was an awesome upgrade. I will keep, on track of the heat coming out of this thing to make sure it's not overheating, but I don't think it's going to be a problem. I don't run this machine for that long of time in crazy hot conditions outside or anything. It's just in my house. It doesn't usually get that hot anyway, so I'm not too concerned. Okay, so we're sitting in front of the machine now. I'm very close to the camera, to the machine, and you can hear the fan noise if you're looking for it, but I'm talking at a very low volume right now, and it's masking it completely. And actually, the noise from my ceiling fan, and not the air moving, I mean the electrical noise of the motor inside that fan, is actually louder than the ambient noise of this fan. So it really just goes to show you that this upgrade was a very nice addition to this Alesis HD24.
Like that.